This was kind of the grand finale for the Cassini mission. September 14th, 2017, NASA told Cassini, time to dive into Saturn's atmosphere. The end of an almost 20-year journey of discovery. It was a one-way trip. But hey, NASA had been planning this for ages. See, Cassini was built different because it had a long to-do list. Over those 2 decades, its fuel for maneuvering was almost gone. It could have gone rogue any second. To keep it from crashing into places that might have life, like Enceladus or Titan, NASA decided to use Cassini's last bit of fuel to steer it into Saturn. They wanted to grab as much data about Saturn's atmosphere as they could on the way down. And get this, everyone was cool with Cassini's planned ending. Usually, probes like the Voyagers just keep cruising into interstellar space after their mission. But that wouldn't work for Cassini. Besides how it was built, the Voyager program was all about exploration and travel. Voyager 2 even hit up Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. That's a record for visiting the most planets with one spacecraft. Because of all that, it's hauling serious speed. No way to slow down enough to orbit another planet. So after the main mission, it could only fly out of the solar system. That speed also helps it travel through space faster. Those Voyager sisters are still zooming away from us super fast. Cassini was a different story, though. Sure, it spotted other planets on its way to Saturn, but its main gig was to orbit the whole Saturn system. Even if its fuel ran out, Saturn's gravity would probably keep it orbiting. But eventually, Saturn's pull would change its course. It could either plunge into the atmosphere or crash into a moon. Now, that doesn't sound too bad, right? But here's the thing you gotta know about Saturn. It's super far from the sun, like 1.43 billion kilometers on average. Way too far for solar power. So, Cassini had to carry 32.7 kilograms of plutonium-238. This stuff ain't plutonium-239, which is a different isotope. It uses radioactive decay to make heat, which then gets turned into electricity. Plutonium-238 has a half-life of about 87.7 years. And yeah, it's pretty radioactive. If it leaked, it could cause some serious, long-lasting pollution. That's why a lot of folks were against launching Cassini. A launch failure could have been like a nuclear bomb going off. So NASA, they had to make darn sure nothing went wrong. They built in a ton of safety features for Cassini. But like we said, there might be life on a couple of Saturn's moons. Previous data showed that Enceladus is ice, and there could be a bunch of water underneath. It even shoots out water jets sometimes. And then there's Titan. It's the only moon in our solar system with a thick atmosphere. It's kind of like Earth. Scientists were really excited about these two. Finding life there would mean we're not alone in the universe. So, to play it safe, NASA decided to send Cassini into Saturn's atmosphere. It's worth mentioning that Cassini was just one part of the mission. It was also attached to a lander called Huygens. They were the last of the big shot probes from the 20th century. This mission was a huge deal, planned way back in the 80s. NASA teamed up with the European Space Agency and the Italian Space Agency. Like 17 countries were involved. NASA built Cassini. The European Space Agency built Huygens, and the Italian Space Agency mostly provided the main antenna. And yeah, they got their names from somewhere cool. Giovanni Cassini was the first to spot Saturn's rings and a few of its moons. Christian Huygens was the first to see Saturn's rings and Titan. To honor their awesome work, NASA named the whole thing Cassini-Huygens. October 15, 1997, Cassini hitched a ride on a Titan 4B rocket. It blasted off from Cape Canaveral. Scientists figured that Saturn's about 1.40 billion kilometers away from Earth on average. If they just used the rocket's power, they'd need to carry over 70 tons of fuel. But Cassini only had about 33 kilograms of propellant, and that was mostly for orbiting Saturn. So, the brainy folks thought of using gravity, the slingshot method, using a planet's gravity to speed it up, kind of like in that movie The Wandering Earth. On its way, Cassini used the gravity of Venus twice, Earth and Jupiter. This pushed its speed up to an incredible 30 kilometers per second. Finally, after 6 years and 8 months and 3.50 billion kilometers of space travel, Cassini made it into Saturn's orbit on July 1st, 2004. Time to check out Saturn's atmosphere, rings, and moons. It started a 4-year science mission. One of the big things it did was fly through the F-ring and G-ring gap. This gap is the widest in Saturn's rings, about 30,000 kilometers across. Even though it looks wide, it's still full of icy particles zipping around super fast. If Cassini bumped into them, it could mess up its instruments big time. So, before going into the gap, Cassini did a 180-degree turn. It used its tail as a shield. And just like that, Cassini made it through. We got our first really close look at Saturn's beautiful rings. After that, Cassini started its long-term study of Saturn. On December 25th, 2004, Cassini got up close with Titan. At the same time, it released the Huygens lander it was carrying. Its mission? To land on Titan's surface. Huygens looked like a shell with a heat shield on the front. It had 3 parachutes in the back. All this to make sure it could complete its mission. The landing on Titan took about 2 hours and 15 minutes. During that time, it analyzed Titan's atmosphere, things like air pressure, temperature, and magnetic field data. And after landing, it took the first ever photos of the ground on Titan. But sadly, because it didn't have much power, Huygens only lasted about 90 minutes after landing. It's still sitting there quietly. And to make things a bit worse, the scientists on Earth kind of messed up. They forgot to turn on one of the receiver channels beforehand. So, only one channel ended up working. The original plan was for both to work at the same time, which would have gotten them around 700 photos. But they only got about 350. Big oops for the European Space Agency. Major bummer for space exploration. After Huygens' mission ended, Cassini was on its own. It was only designed to last for 4 years. But it did such an awesome job that it kept going for 13 years. During that time, Cassini did a ton of cool stuff, like this picture it took of Rhea's icy surface. Rhea is a frozen moon and Saturn's second biggest. It's got millions of craters. Makes you wonder what it's been through. Besides that, Cassini flew by Titan 54 times, and it found a lake in Titan's northern hemisphere. This was the first time scientists had ever seen a lake on another world. Even though it's a hydrocarbon ocean, this discovery still got scientists super excited. But get this, Cassini actually flew through the stuff that Enceladus sprays out. It analyzed the ocean inside Enceladus' icy shell and found complex hydrocarbons. This is soil, solid evidence that Enceladus might have life. And get this, on July 19, 2013, Cassini happened to be in Saturn's shadow. The folks back on Earth had an idea. They sent a command to take a picture looking back at Earth. Underneath Saturn's massive rings, a tiny blue that shines brightly in the night sky. That's our home. If you zoom in a bit, you can even see a little star next to Earth. That's the moon. Hard to believe that from 1.40 billion kilometers away, Earth looks so small. Zoom out to the cosmic scale, and it's probably just a speck of dust. September 11, 2017, was Cassini's last flyby of Titan. This time it was only about 12,000 kilometers away. But this close approach wasn't to explore or map Titan. It was to use Titan's gravity for one last speed boost. Because Cassini was about to start its final chapter, the big plunge. Cassini adjusted its orbit here to make sure that after the next adjustment, it would head straight into Saturn's atmosphere. Because by this point, Cassini was running on fumes. To keep it from losing control and maybe hitting a moon that could have life, they had to send it into Saturn in a controlled way. So, after one last loop around Saturn, Cassini's almost 20-year career was about to end. September 14th, 2017, at 1:22 p.m. Cassini pointed its antenna back at its home planet, Earth. Over the next few hours, it would beam back all the data it had collected. Usually, data gets bundled up and sent back every few days. But with Cassini about to get incinerated by Saturn's atmosphere any second, it sent data every few seconds. Try and get as much valuable info back to Earth as possible. The ground crews were frantically analyzing the atmosphere. At 3:30 a.m. on the 15th, Cassini detected higher concentrations of stuff in the atmosphere around it. This meant it had entered Saturn's atmosphere. But just 2 minutes later, poof! It burned up in Saturn's atmosphere, like a shooting star, forever a part of Saturn. It's kind of wild to think that Cassini's radio signal took 83 minutes to reach Earth. So, when the folks on the ground got the last message, Cassini had already been in Saturn's embrace for 83 minutes. And after Cassini crashed, the control room went silent. After 20 years, Cassini had become like family. Project manager Earl Mays gave the final briefing on the mission. I hope you're all as deeply proud of this amazing accomplishment. Congratulations to you all. This has been an incredible mission, an incredible spacecraft, and you're all an incredible team. I'm going to call this the end of mission. And hey, if you dug this story, give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more awesome space stuff. Thanks for watching.